Hello, friends. Today we're going to talk about cost of living in Canada. This is particularly very important for people who are thinking to immigrate to Canada or for folks who just simply want to know what is it like from a cost perspective to live in Canada. So let's roll in. So what I've done here is I've looked at different uh, analyst sites. When I use the word analyst sites, the folks that come up with some research, how much is it really cost to live in Canada? And also, this is my personal experience as well, so it's not totally the information that you would see on web. So you're getting this information from someone who is living through this cycle for a long while now. And in this example, what I've done is I've taken an example of two adults and two children. And again, you can consider this as a young family, um, family of kids who are under 10 years old, or the kids who are in their teens. And also, I understand there are a lot of people, especially from an immigration perspective, a single person in the family moves first into Canada. So I put some figures here where you see single 10,000 and up. What I mean by here is this is the amount of money that you would need to survive in Canada. And also, when I use the word survive, you can use uh, you can make a lot of money to thrive in Canada as well. I think it's a beautiful country, but again, like everybody, like me, you got to do your due diligence. You got to be prepared before you step into Canadian land here. One of the things that when I was looking for uh, personally, how much I would need. A lot of people don't even talk about taxes, and that's why you see right at the top I have taxes here. Taxes are probably bulk of expense. Yes, taxes are expenses because you are paying to the government. So, uh, if family of two adults, assuming both are making money, on an average, this is the amount that you would end up paying for taxes, right? Again, I'm going to have a separate section on the taxes, but again, these are just the ballpark average numbers that I just want to iterate to you. So, as I said before, so you can be prepared. Approximately, the housing is also a major chunk in this example. I've taken $20,000 and approximate. I'm going to get into more details, very specific in a moment as well. Transportation is a key, and transportation becomes very critical, especially as you land here, as you move here. Hopefully, assuming you can buy a car. If you cannot buy a car, then there is public transport. And assuming, as I said before, both spouses are working, you have to use the public transport. And public transport is not the cheapest. At the same time, also you need to think about transportation to your groceries, and if you're having a car or any vehicle, you got to think about all the insurance aspects. So all the key that in 12,000 that you see have incorporated all the cost. Coming down to food, food is also very key. We cannot survive without food. So around, I have marked 8,700 for food. That includes at times you want to take your family out for restaurants as well, assuming you're not having a super luxurious meal and you're not opting for like super expensive high-end restaurants. So maybe a couple of visits in a month would uh, keep you within the budget that you see here. And I have included $2,000, even though I'm going to talk a bit around the education as well. Yes, you need to buy the stationery. Yes, you need to buy uh, things related to kids' education here, assuming your kids are not going to private, which is a different ball game altogether. And I have here used an assumption that your kids are going to a public education if they are under grade 12. Also, if they are in the university or if they plan to go in university, I'm also going to cover in a bit. Moving on to the next chart here, these are very specific examples, and I've taken example of Toronto and Vancouver because most of the people tend to move into those two big cities. That does not undermine the other cities like Montreal, Ottawa, Winnipeg, Calgary, and others, but This would give you a kind of a range or spectrum from a rent perspective. Uh, you can end up paying on rent even $4,000 if you, of course, rent a bigger house. But again, I'm assuming that um, as somebody is immigrating, the focus is to land in a job, not to have expenses roll over month. So you can get one bedroom, one bedroom plus den, or if you go too far from the city with a price range that I have listed here from 850 to $1,000. And of course, as I said before, the bigger house you have or the condo you have, the more you need to spend. And we talked in our last slide on the food. Uh, this is an average that an adult spends in Canada uh, for having the basic meals. And when I use the word basic, the meal would cover you and your family uh, quite satisfactory in terms of your needs. And of course, you can go higher as well. Cell phone, this is a gig economy. We all know that we cannot live with voice and data plans. So I've listed 45 to $60. There are a lot of companies here, around six or seven, where you can negotiate. If you're good in negotiation, you can even get a better price than what I've listed here. But an average Canadian pays between 45 to $60 a month. Of course, there are higher plans as well as you had in your country or wherever you're moving from. It based on how much usage you would have. Internet access, the range is quite wide. $40, where they give you a download of 200, upload of 50. Again, I'm using this as an example, and it goes all the way to unlimited internet, to $150. Of course, again, I'm going to emphasize that you can negotiate with the companies who's going to provide you internet services. So I usually end up paying around 60, 65, which I think it's a reasonable for unlimited internet. Public transportation, assuming that you're not using your car, I've listed for different cities: Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver. You all can read here: $86 for Montreal, $151 per month if you want to have a TTC pass, for example. And of course, if you're living in suburbs, let's take an example of Toronto. There's Brampton, Mississauga, Oakville. They have their own transit system. Of course, you would be spending in addition to what you see here. For example, the Brampton transit would cost you another $100. And let's say if your job is in downtown Toronto, then you would be adding $100 or whatever the amount would be to $151. And so is the case with other cities as well. uh, uh, Minimum wage, this is really important because in Canada we have different minimum wage set province to province, and they keep on changing. So I have 11 to $15 again. They may change, but from an average hourly wage perspective, on an average, if you're making $22 to $30, again, you want to make more than that, but this would cover your expenses, and you can live with your family, as I said, family of two kids and two adults, quite comfortably in all the major cities. And again, the word comfortable can be different from family to family, person to person, and especially for single people. Uh, Listen, if you're flexible, you can share accommodation, and that really brings down some of your rental expenses here. But on an average, even for a single person, I would anticipate that you would still pay minimum $500, assuming that you're living in a basement and so forth. But again, these numbers can be very subjective, as you all would know, because it really drives from who you are and what kind of life you want to live in. Uh, yes, there are few things that's less expensive from wherever you're moving from. Medicare, especially from a medical perspective, every province has their own medical coverage here, and almost it's free. All the medical coverage for prescriptions. There are certain there are a lot of options available again from province to province. For example, in BC, it's different. In Ontario, especially for low-income families, government covers the generic drugs. And again, we're going to get into more details in my other session. But overall, relative to where you're moving from, in a lot of countries, I know this is a big expense, and you got to take care of your health. Health comes first. The other thing is I kind of touch very high level on the education from grade kindergarten to grade 12, and as long as your kid is staying in a public, it is absolutely free. It's and the quality is on a relative basis higher than any other or at par with any other industrialized nation as well. And of course, you go in university, and especially if you are a permanent resident or you have some legal status here, then uh, the education is also highly subsidized. For international students, I'm going to cover in a later session. But in my next chart, what I want to show you is kind of a very high level comparison. A lot of people, and I've taken an example of U.S. universities here, so you can really see around $60,000 for Ryerson. Again, the numbers change based on the coursework you take, based on uh, the level, for example, postgraduate, or if you want to do an undergraduate, the fees is different from course to course. But on an average, for a comparison perspective, I think it's a good number to consider if you, even if you're looking at some of the American universities south of the border here, you can just see the differential here yourself. So you have uh, good information around how much does it cost to live in Canada, immigrate to Canada. I think it gives you kind of a good preamble to make certain decisions. Do me a favor, please. If you like this video, please subscribe and like the video. Uh, all your comments are welcome. If you have specific questions, please don't hesitate to ask at the bottom here. With that, I want to close and thank you so much. And we'll just say bye to you.